Hi everyone, another tutorial from iExcel Core. In this video today, we're going to create and manage invoice. We're going to learn how to create and manage invoice inside of iExcel Core, one of those important processes and parts within the sales process. An invoice in iExcel Core is the billing document that you send to your client once a quotation or project has been accepted. It records the sale officially, allowing for you to track payment and keep all your financial records accurate. Each invoice you issue is automatically linked to your accounting and customer modules for real-time updates and real-time follow-up of the same. To be able to navigate to the invoice, we go to the sales module. Under the sales module, we'll see the invoice. So for all the invoices that have been issued, you will see all invoices issued here. And we have create invoice button. So we'll start by creating a new invoice. Remember, to be able to create an invoice, we must have an existing client. Once you have an existing client, you have the details of the executive client, you're able to pull in the client and make the details of the client of the invoice. As you can see, there is no payment mode for this invoice. We can quickly set up a payment mode for our system by quickly going to setup. And once we go to setup, we can go to the finance function, and in the finance function, we can have a mode for payment. This will be an offline mode of payment, and we can say bank. Probably we can just put any details. And then we can say the short on invoice. Then quickly we go back to the sales again, where we can set up invoice, and then we do create a new invoice. Now you will see we can set up a payment module for this invoice, so we created the bank, and then we can create for the client. An invoice can only be set up for clients that are existing in the system. This client has an initial invoice that is not paid, so it can be merged. We can merge invoice, we can mark it and merge it with this current invoice you're paying, but we don't want to do that for now. We create the invoice. At this point, you're able to say if this invoice is recurring and the level of recurring. So for invoices that recur every month, you do not need to keep raising an invoice every month. The system will automatically generate an invoice. So every 1 month, a system can generate a recurring invoice. For this invoice, we'll keep it simple, will not be a recurring invoice. And say this client bought routers, and then he brought 15 routers. If there any tax, any admin note that we need to do, the number of days can be 15 or it can be 30 days. So you just are able to change the date when you expect the invoice payment. If you expect it today, if it's a cash sale, or you can say due date today. Once you tick that, then the invoice is created for the customer. So we can save it as draft if it needs to be reviewed, or we can save and send. We can put terms and conditions on the invoices, terms and conditions for the clients to note on below for all the invoices. This can be automated. We shall learn more on setting up iExcel. You can watch the video on setting up the system and see how we set up this automated, so that they are not done every other time, but they are done only once every time we have that. And send, or save and send later, or save and record a payment. That via email, it's been sent. We can see the activity log. It was created, the invoice was created, and 2 has been generated from our Excel code demo to Mali Pty, which is the client. We can have reminders for this invoice, any notes we need. Again, our Excel code will tell us once the invoice is opened by virtue of tracking the email sent, and we're also able to see if the client has viewed invoice. To view the invoice from the perspective of the customer, you can click here and you'll be able to see how the client sees the invoice. So the bank details with an offline payment that was there, the amount of the invoice, where the invoice is shipped to for purposes of payment. We can download the invoice here in PDF and send. We can view the PDF here. We can view PDF in a different tab. If the invoice requires changes, we can click on this, the edit invoice, and say we needed to edit the quantity or we needed to invoice a different amount. We can update that and then save. And that, in a nutshell, is how we create invoice in one way of creating the invoice. The other way of creating an invoice is through converting an estimate or a quote to an invoice. So when you organize here, you can see this estimate has been sent. We can come and convert that estimate by virtue of viewing it as a client and say this estimate has been accepted. Let's accept the invoice. Once you accept this particular quotation, and say sign, we consent to signing it, then that becomes accepted, and of converting that estimate to an invoice. If we can refresh our screen, then we can see the quote that was accepted, and this is the particular invoice 3 that has been generated from that. So those are the two ways how we can raise an invoice. We can raise an invoice by raising an invoice directly for a particular project or a particular product or service, or we can raise an invoice by changing a quote into an invoice. All the flows are recorded within the system. Thank you for watching, and that's how we create new invoices in our Excel core. In the next video, we are going to learn how to receive payments. Thank you.